Okay, let's talk about the preliminaries on comparative analysis as well as the concept of state. Okay. So what is comparative politics? Now, comparative politics is the systematic study of government and politics in different countries, designed to better understand them by drawing out their contrast and similarities. So before you are enrolled in this subject, one thing that will most likely come out from your minds is that we will be contrasting, we will be differentiating types of government from one country to another, or types of politics they follow from one country to another, the structure of governance, um, the system of government, the bureaucracy that they are following. So these are the things that are common in studying comparative politics. But again, we cannot directly deal with these things without knowing the different approaches, without knowing the different theories relating to the study of comparative politics. Because when we say comparative politics and governance is will be dealing every detail and every aspect of the system. Okay. So when we talk of understanding, it is not only the need to comprehend other political systems, but also to understand our own. Of course, how can you compare the systems of another country without knowing your own system of government? Okay, that's why it's important for us to be familiar about the constitution, how politics play in the Philippine arena, how, for instance, our government mandate its perhaps officials in order to carry out the will rather of the people, how our finances are being governed by our public officials, and how do we, for instance, collect our revenue, how or who is the authority vested with the power to exercise these rights. Okay, what are the different functions of the three branches of government, etc., etc. Because if we know all these things, then we can already have an idea, and we can already and effectively, okay, distinguish our own system to the systems of government of the other nation. Okay, we can follow domestic politics closely and think we have a good grasp on how it works, but we cannot fully understand it without comparing it with other systems. This will tell us a great deal about the nature of our home system. I think that comparative politics is not new to you, because I would assume that you are already done with your subject, government and the government of Southeast Asia, if I am not mistaken. But similar to that, okay, we will be comparing, okay, systems of government not only focused within the Southeast Asian region, but ultimately we will be talking about, if time permits, then we can come across about the different systems of government in each continent. Right. So what's the goal of comparative politics? The core goal of comparative politics is to understand how political institutions and processes operate by examining their workings across a range of countries. This is very important because it's one of the elements of the state, right? That there should be government, there should be governance. And how is this government perform its functions within the territory? Okay. Comparison has many purposes, including the simple description of political systems and institutions, helping us understand the broader context within which they work, helping us develop theories and rules of politics, and showing us how similar problems are approached by different societies. Because, of course, if we have distinctions with respect to the political system, political structure, etc., then we will have a distinct also approaches in the resolution of the problem of a state. But two particular purposes are worth elaboration. Number one, broadening our understanding of political world and predicting political outcomes. Basically, if you know the structure, if you know the politics that they have, then you can definitely predict what would be their actions in terms of maritime conflict. For instance, there is an issue between a state and another state, okay? Or in the case of the Philippines, the West Philippine Sea. What do you think is the approach of Chinese government with respect or vis-a-vis um, arbitration ruling with respect to West Philippine Sea? So it's important that we know how their constitution is framed, how their government is being played in that society or in that state, in order for us to predict political outcomes. Right. In politics, predicting is an art rather than a science, and a valuable one at that. Even so, the potential for prediction provides a starting point for drawing lessons across countries rather than resorting to ideology or complete guesswork. We can use comparison to consider what would happen if questions. No. Okay. So as you can see, right before we start with the meat really of comparative politics, we have studied at least the world history. Okay. The First World War, the Second World War, and even the origin of the state in their different empires, the Roman empires, etc., etc. So only, okay, by knowing all these things, okay, by knowing the brief history, and of course knowing the scope and the origin of these studies, that we can understand, okay, and we can predict, okay, how their governance are being framed. For example, we all know that, right, that the Western and the Eastern countries follow different paths. They follow different ideologies, different political beliefs, etc., etc. Because in effect, the Second World War, for instance, it has been divided, or the world has been divided because of the different ideologies we follow. Okay, and because of the different ideologies we follow, we it resulted to conflict. And when there's conflict, there's war. And when there's war, of course, there would be, chaos. Okay, so later on, we can learn about the different distinctions of ideologies, political ideologies. Okay, but let us acknowledge that ideologies in the national sphere is very much different compared to international politics. Why? Because international politics, the behavior is, you will study the behavior of the state. But in the national sphere, just like, for example, Philippines, you will be studying the behavior of political parties, the candidates, and of course the electorate. Okay. Comparison permits generalizations which have some potential for prediction. Hence, a careful study of, say, campaigning and public opinion will help us better understand the possible outcome of elections. So let's talk about political economy. What is this? No, it is the relationship between political activity and economic performance. But take note that politics and economy or economics are two different areas, or field of education. Okay, so but again, these two can go hand in hand. Of course, if you're the head of the state or you're the head of the government, it's important that you have knowledge of the economy, and you also have the knowledge about how state behave in international community. How do you deal with different countries when you attend conventions, when you enter into treaties and executive agreements, etc. Okay, so we can cut on that part.